I was speaking to a friend the other day, and he presented a very interesting theory. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but it is something very interesting and something that I think is worth looking into. Now, here's his theory. You notice how, white privilege has now become a mainstream statement. You can see it on the news. They have it on like MTV now, decoding racism and whatnot. So actually talking about really existing racism really has hit the mainstream. So it's not like something that the media or like the mainstream just kind of acknowledges but pushes aside. It's like a main thing right now. And all these other things like cishet this and cishet that, these things are now reaching a mainstream audience and gaining mainstream support. Now here's the theory he offered. Look at the changing demographics in the United States. It's very clearly that the population of white people is shrinking. And that's just the way it is. And that Latinos, blacks, and Asians are taking up a larger percentage of the population. Now here's the theory he presented. The fact that it's getting into the mainstream is important because it signals a shift in the stance of the ruling class. And the ruling class doesn't just talk about nonsense. They're talking about things for a very specific reason to push a very specific angle, and that is in defense of themselves. He suggested, what if imperialism is trying to project itself a new image, waiting for the rest of that major demographic change to take place? When white people become a minority in the United States, like a real severe minority, and people of color become the dominant numbers. He said, look at it. Look at what kind of mainstream messages is allowed to be put out. That black Americans are the same as Africans. We're one race, we're one people, we're unified, we're with you, our African brothers. Meanwhile, at the same time, they benefit off of imperialism. I mean, even the poorest people in the United States benefit off of imperialism. But look at the image that the ruling class is projecting. They're projecting as though they're the same. My friend suggested, what if this is the new image? That now this is the message that they're sending to the occupied countries, the victims of imperialism. That's not something we do. That's something that the white people who used to run the country did. That's something the white people did. That's something the white Americans did. We're black like you. We're Asian like you. We're Latino like you. So we're not like them. Meanwhile, all the plunder of imperialism still ends up in the hands of Americans. And in that way, nothing has actually changed at all. But perhaps this might be a change in the face of imperialism to make it look different. That this is not the same thing as it is in the past. We're here to help you because we're also black, we're also Latino, we're also Asian. Is that a possibility? Could there be, in the future, that kind of message being put out? Maybe 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. However long it takes for that major demographic to shift, where white people become a very small minority. Because imperialism, like capitalism, constantly evolves. And it evolves in order to protect itself. And it will do that. It will project all kinds of false images in order to justify itself and protect itself from criticism. And I don't think it's beyond reason that the ruling class would do that. It would project that kind of image in order to defend itself and what it does. And tries to make it out like black, Latino, and Asian people in the United States are the allies and the same brothers as black, Asian, and Latino people in the third world, when that's absolutely not true. All first world people benefit from the exploitation of the third world, and they have a class benefit of being in the first world for doing so. It's why I believe that no real first world, African, like black group really has any solidarity with the third world, so long as they continue to support imperialism, because they do benefit from imperialist plunder. But wouldn't it be interesting if that actually was the case, where they were now projecting a new false image in order to protect imperialism from criticism, and even change it in the eyes of third world people to make it seem more palatable? I don't necessarily agree with this theory, but I think it's an interesting thing to talk about. Thank you for watching. Why don't you go ahead, rate, comment, subscribe, and share on various social media. And if you want, you can head over to my Patreon page and show your support. Or you could head over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.